Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I'm your host, Catryn Becker. On this podcast, we love to ask the question of, what can we learn from other people? Are there things that we don't know? Because while a smart person learns from their mistakes, a genius learns from others. So we bring in amazing speakers and people in industries of all different kinds so that we can learn what they've learned in their career and what has brought them success. Because we learn way more from our failures than we do from our successes. And we know that every successful person has a mountain of failures behind them. So we want to learn about what those are so that you can either avoid the mistakes completely or you can fail faster. My guest today is someone that I've known for many years. She and I have both had completely separate careers from what we're doing now. And so it's so amazing to reconnect after that time and to share the amazing mission that she is doing. Her name is Alicia Kabir, and she is the CEO of a nonprofit called Kesem, which is serving a group of people that you might not have thought about. It's kids whose parents have been impacted by cancer. So it's a really amazing mission. I'm probably going to get emotional because I'm emotional just talking about it because it is something so dear to my heart, and just, I'm just so excited to talk to her and to share all of this with all of you. So Alicia, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Catryn. It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you for all you do with this podcast and the opportunity to discuss Kesem and nonprofits today.
Oh, gosh, yes. I mean, there's so many amazing things that I want to discuss with you, but I think the biggest thing that I want to start off with is a nonprofit. What does that exactly mean? I mean, I think people just hear nonprofit and they think you don't make money, but there's a lot of money that gets raised through a nonprofit because you do amazing work. So I would love for you to go a little bit more into Kesem and what it has been like for you to go from being a partner at an amazing environmental consulting firm to being the CEO of a nonprofit.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind of a career, one I would never do anything different. I'm so grateful for my time in the consulting world and then translating that into my world here at Kesem now. Running a nonprofit is like running a for-profit business. It is around making sure you're using money as wisely as possible. And in our case, in the nonprofit space, our goal is to put every dollar that we can back into the mission and serve more children impacted by a parent's cancer in our case. So serving as many kids each year as we can. At the end of the day, though, what that requires is what we all know to be true in the for-profit space. You need a vision and you need a clear business objective and a plan. You need really smart people and staff in order to go do that work. And you need people who are really bought in to what the organization does to be successful. And then behind that, you've got the same metrics, the same key performance indicators around, how much did it cost to bring in a new donor or to serve a child? How much did it cost me to do some fundraising, to do my overhead? So it's a lot of the same where you're looking at metrics, balancing that though with the need for a lot of empathy and a lot of resilience as you're looking to serve whatever community that is. And again, for us at Kesem, it's children going through really hard things at home. So it's a balance of a mind shift of business. You got to run this like a business, but also with your heart as you're working with your community and kids who are going through some really hard things.
Well, the thing that really just jumped out to me as you were mentioning that is typically in for-profit businesses, we talk about sort of two veins, that they're either B2B, business to business, or B2C, business to consumer. And I feel like the nonprofit, you kind of have to straddle both because you get money from corporate sponsorships, which would be kind of the B2B model in some ways, but then you also get private donors. So how do you navigate that, and sort of how do you even market and message this out? Like, what does that piece of it look like?
Yeah, that's really astute, Catryn, and I love that. It's really about knowing your audience, which I know is a phrase we use a lot. It is really, really important in the nonprofit space to know what that looks like. So some corporations, yes, they're going to be maybe a law firm or someone in the pharmaceutical space where they're formal, and you need to present in a very formal way to them. Many of our donors and our corporate sponsors as well are bought in on this mission, right? And we tell a lot of hard stories. We make a lot of people cry, honestly, and that is what pulls the heartstrings in order to bring people into this community. So again, it's trying to straddle that balance of when you really lean into the emotional side of what we do, which is truly transforming lives for thousands of children every year, versus also presenting yourself as a professional business, which we are in so many ways as well.
It's got to be a really delicate line to walk of having that professionalism, but then bringing in something so emotional. And, it's not seen as something accepted. And, I didn't do air quotes, but I was thinking air quotes of you don't cry in business. It's like that, like Tom Hanks line in that baseball movie where it's like, there's no crying in baseball. There's no crying in business. And yet in your business, there absolutely is crying. And it's a big part of that. So how do you balance knowing how to walk that line, knowing when to push those emotional buttons, to pull on those heartstrings, because your mission is bigger than any sort of perception anyone might have. So how do you balance that?
Yeah. I'd say more often than not, my advice is to lean into those stories of joy and of hardship, to first present yourself as a capable and growing nonprofit, as you would in any space for any business, and then really lean into those stories. We have an incredible community of volunteers and families we serve who often join us in having those conversations with supporters, so that everyone can hear firsthand the impact that Kesem has on them as a parent and as a child. So we really do lean a lot on the stories that come out of our community, the impact that we've had. And we also do a lot of videos as well. We really lean on how to tell this story in person and through video, because that is how people really understand the heart of what we do at Kesem. Because you're right, what you see at a surface sometimes, at least for Kesem, and I think a lot of nonprofits, is people assume fun for us. Our primary camp program is what we're known for. So you see tie-dye and you see laughing, and what we need to do is translate that into actually the core of what we're doing, which is supporting kids going through hard things in a way that no other organization can do that. So it is trying to translate these stories and tell them in different ways that resonate.
And I love what you offer with Camp Kesem, because summer camp is just such a rite of passage of just growing up, of getting to go to summer camp. But I think what's so special from my perspective, I was watching a lot of the YouTube videos in preparation for this interview, and and I've talked to other people who have gone through hard things, part of the work that I do outside of this podcast. And these hard things that people go through can be so very isolating. And I know for people who have had something tragic happen in their lives, they really struggle with how to tell someone who hasn't gone through that, because they talk about the pity that they see in the other person's eyes, and that person, not the other person who's receiving the information, not knowing how to respond. Like if you heard, some hard thing that someone's going through. So I can imagine for these children that going to a regular camp, and you start talking, making friends, and it's like, oh, just say something about your parents. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, my mom's going through cancer, and how that would just change everybody. But here at Camp Kesem, they don't have to have those conversations because they all understand. And that's such a beautiful thing. So I would love to know more about the camp and what the campers go through, and what that program looks like.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we truly believe in the power of community and finding people who get you. And that is true for the kids we serve and also the parents. A lot of our volunteers and staff are also personally affected by cancer. So yes, Kesem serves children whose parents have or had cancer. So we're looking at situations where children have lost a parent, also parents who have survived cancer. I know that's a tricky word as well, survive, but there's a lot of underlying angst around the next cancer scan and what would this look like in the future. And our goal is to simply get these kids to connect. And you're right, because you're at Kesem, you know why you're there. And we believe strongly, not in sympathy, but in empathy. And that is where we lean heavily, that we walk the shoes of the kids that we serve. And in every way possible, we get them to open up about what's going on at home where it makes sense, and yet also allow them to find hope and joy and the ability to remember that they're kids and they have the right to a childhood. So again, we find that perfect balance of hope and joy in our camp program. We also do things year round with the kids that are available in the spring and the fall. And then as times are needed for maybe hospice care or other support year round for families. But yes, camp is what we're known for. It is 12 weeks that we run over the summer. And that is really where the most of the healing and support for our kids happen.
So not every business operates where there's a season. You have a seasonal business in a lot of ways where, you know, everything is building up to this crazy 12 weeks of intense activity. So how do you plan that out? And especially with volunteers, because, you know, they're not being paid, they're not a paid employee. Like, you must have situations where people don't show up or they don't do what they're supposed to do because they're just a volunteer. So how do you navigate that? And can you share some stories and examples with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So most of our volunteers are college students. We have over 4,000 college students supporting us across the country. They're at 130
that's amazing.
across the country. So many big schools, names that you'd be like, are we there? And be like, yep, we've got a chapter there and we're continuing to grow and expand. Our mentality and thought is the volunteers also need to live through one of our other important values of accountability. And when you sign up to be part of this organization, we need you to deliver on what you said you would do in order to support these kids. Our college student volunteers run their chapters and they get real leadership opportunity from being a part of Kesem. I would encourage anyone who hears this podcast, if you see Kesem on a resume, you should hire these college students and my volunteers because they are truly amazing. They are working with these families. They are running these camps and other programs. They are fundraising. They are out in the community talking about Kesem. So to answer that question, the mindset is you're part of Kesem, and even as a volunteer, we are giving you opportunities to build your resume and learn leadership skills. And in turn, we need you to show up for the families that we serve. So there is a real responsibility in being part of our organization. And yes, the season is crazy. Summer is so busy for us. And the best you can do is plan for it and make sure those other months, then we give people as much time as possible. So for example, for staff, we say, you know, most Fridays in the afternoon, if you can log off a little bit early, you should do that. You should take some time while you can. We make sure our volunteers get the training that they need year round so that they're ready to go by the time summer hits. So it really is thinking about staffing and what workload looks like in order to provide better work-life balance the other parts of the year, because we simply sometimes have to say it's really busy in the summer. You're going to be working more these weeks than in other. We simply try to balance that over the entire year.
And having the expectation helps everything. Like if you know, okay, these next 12 weeks are going to be full out, it's so much easier mentally to adjust to that and be ready for it. So I think communication is really a huge piece, I would imagine, of how you communicate with them.
Yeah. That's a great point and yeah, it's all about transparency and setting expectations. Our other big push is actually Giving Tuesday, which is right after Thanksgiving. That is one of our biggest fundraising days where our entire organization raises a third of the money that we need for the year in a week.
What?
And it's the same mindset of we need to get there, right? We got to focus on this. This is all hands on deck for that week and those days. And then knowing, you know, things will be settled. And it'll get a little bit quieter once we're through the Giving Tuesday season.
Oh my gosh. So what does that look like? Can you walk us through that week?
So fun, Catryn. So we will raise over $2 million on Giving Tuesday. And we have our volunteers, our college students, just all hands on deck, our staff, our volunteers, everyone out there raising money. So we will be asking our larger donors for gifts. We do match challenges. And the students do really fun things. Like I can't tell you how many tattoos, some tattoos are out there. You know, if they raise a certain amount of money, they'll tell their supporters, I'm going to go get a tattoo of Kesem. They'll drink gallons of hot sauce. They will shave their head. It is so fun to see the creativity that happens that day and that week. Yeah.
I feel like there needs to be like a hashtag, like the ALS ice bucket one from a couple of years ago that went so viral. Like We need to get Kesem to have that. That would be incredible.
I like where you're going. We're going to figure that one out. Yes, it really is quite a movement, and we're recognized nationally for our fundraising efforts that week. Yeah.
Well, and that's such an awesome way to leverage social media because, you know, you and I, we're not spring chickens anymore, right? Like the kids these days, I feel like is a phrase that I've said recently a couple of times, and I was like, who have I become? But you know, it was the kids that started with the Snapchat and the TikTok and the Instagram even. And, you know, they're always at the cutting edge of all these new things. And we know that there's always going to be a new social media, a new trend, a new thing. So the fact that you were so tapped in and connected with college students and high school students and, you know, the kids these days, it's such an advantage.
It is. It is so fun. And I'm laughing because sometimes we'll say, oh, the kids. And I'm like, were those the college students or are those the children we're serving, you know, younger than 18? Because you're right. Time goes fast. I can say, though, in working with these thousands of college students that I have such hope for the future and seeing they're out there doing this great work, doing all these things for Kesem on top of schoolwork. A lot of them are pre-med and science majors doing really hard things with their course load and then other support and other jobs that they have. And I just have such excitement and promise for the future. It's such an incredible generation that's going to be coming up into the ranks.
Oh, that sounds so amazing. I mean, I think there's just something intrinsic within our human nature to want to help others. And it's so great to have that seed planted so early in them, because you know, if they're doing it now and making time out of their busy schedules and their course loads and that, yeah, you're right. It's a really important thing for the future of how they will continue to bring that out into the world, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, they will continue to give back in so many good ways.
Yeah. Well, okay. So as we've mentioned, there's the hope and the joy, but there's also the hardship of what you go through. And a topic that is talked a lot about in the healthcare profession, which you're like healthcare adjacent, right? You know, you're affected by that industry, is compassion fatigue and how to witness these thousands of children that you serve and all of their stories that come with that, you know, day in, day out. So I'd love if you can talk a little bit more about compassion fatigue and how you've seen it in your organization and some of what you do personally to get through that, because you have to be a very empathetic person to do this job. And I can only imagine on the burden that could place on you and others.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a really, really important topic for us at Kesem, and I'm sure in nonprofits across the country right now. It's kind of like the oxygen mask on the plane, right? You got to put that on yourself first before you support others. You got to take care of yourself. If I could share with you one of the stories we heard a little while ago around our support and the importance of it. We had one of the dads let us know, you know, that his wife had passed away. His son was about 8 years old at the time. And his son felt very guilty, and I thought it was his fault that his mom died.
Oh.
And they went to every counseling service possible, every opportunity for therapy for this child. And the dad said, I really think I'm going to lose my son. He's suicidal, and I really think I'm going to lose him too, in addition to my wife. Mm. And he said, by some miracle, I was introduced to Kesem, and Kesem gave me my son back. Kesem was the only organization that somehow told my son, and it got him to listen, that this wasn't his fault. And that was only possible because he met other kids just like him. And these are the stories, Catryn, we hear every day, literally every day. I've been here for 6 years, and there probably isn't a day that I don't cry here at Kesem. But getting back to compassion fatigue, what you need to do is remember the good things that are happening and the transformative experiences happening for these kids. And going back to the oxygen mask analogy, you have to care for yourself in order to hear these stories and be able to care for these kids. So we really, even in the busiest summers of camp, you've got to take breaks. You've got to have a self-care plan. You've got to know what that looks like. And that's deeper than getting a bubble bath or a massage. You know, it's time off. It's dinner with your family, it's time with your kids. What does that look like for you? And we need to make sure that that happens as much as possible in order to do this job.
Do you mind sharing your routine and what
Mhm.
you do to keep that oxygen mask on?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. For me, it's time with my family. It definitely is. My two boys are in high school, and I need time with them and be able to appreciate how lucky and fortunate we are here and get great time with them. We love to cook together and make meals together. That's how we connect. So we really make sure we're spending time together, making dinners together, eating. And that's really what I lean on in order to continue this work at Kesem.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think it's such a good point just for, whatever industry someone's in. Any job can be stressful. And I think, sometimes it's easy to compare and be like, well, yeah, I'm not doing what Alicia's doing. I'm not, helping children whose parents have gone through cancer. So, how could I be stressed out? But it's all completely relative, and we're all walking our own journey. And to not compare to what others do, but to learn from others and say, hey, I can make a little bit more intentional time myself. For the busy
You're more
times.
of an expert in this than I am. You know this world, but yeah, burnout is real across the board. Just given this economic landscape, what everyone is still working through, and yeah, you've got to care for yourself as part of just being a good human being and doing and showing up right in this world.
Right. And yet somehow putting on the oxygen mask first is not our default setting. Like that's why it's in the flight safety rules, right? Because my instinct as a mom, I must protect my children first. Like if I did not have that phrase drilled into my brain from being on, all the planes in my life, I'm not sure I would default to that. And
I
I'm
agree.
sure you see similar stuff like that in the work that you do. So, I mean, is there processes and procedures within Kesem to watch out for the volunteers and the staff to ensure that they are doing that for themselves?
Mhm. Yeah, I'd say it's simply part of our culture, and we can always do better. And I think every organization can, but it's monitoring, seeing how other people are reacting to situations and being like, I know that you're having a hard time with this, and I know you're not going to want to hear this. You need to go get a cup of coffee. You need to go take a walk. You need to log off, and we're going to see you tomorrow. And I have to say, my team and my staff in particular, we have 40 people, are really, really good at this and model this for our volunteers and for everyone in the community. They are super focused on caring for each other. And I'm super proud of that work and what they do.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So you have 40 staff. Are they located all over or are they close where you are in New England?
Yeah, we are a fully remote organization and have always been remote in our 23 years. So it was so funny, Catryn, during the pandemic, seeing everyone come remote and then go back to other offices. And here we are doing this. We don't have offices because it reduces our overhead. It allows us to put more of that money towards the mission. A lot of our staff live across the country as well in order to support the volunteers in each of the states where we work. And it's 44 states. So for us, it's also an advantage to have people located where their portion of the work and where their overseeing work is occurring.
So how do you start a chapter to get things going in a state? Is it someone coming up and saying, hey, I really believe in this mission and I want to do this? Or like how does that process work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. A lot of you got it.
Ding,
a
ding,
lot,
ding.
yeah, a lot of our children we serve, we serve kids through high school, and then when they graduate, they will often go to college and then volunteer. Sometimes their new college will not have a chapter, so they may start one for us. We have donors come in and say, I want to continue to grow Kesem, and they'll work with us to identify locations that are best suited. Sometimes it's where they went to school as a donor, but we also need to make sure there's criteria that are met that we know drive success for our new chapters. So we also do a vetting process as well. We're also starting to pilot some new programs outside of camp where families can get together. We're starting to get ready to do some other virtual virtual types of programs too. So we're really looking at ways where people can invest in Kesem and different kinds of programs and simply in families and help us invest in growth. And then we'll work with them to figure out how that looks and what's best for them as an investor in our company, in our firm, in our organization, and then also for the kids we serve.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm curious. I'm like, well, what are the 6 states that need to have a Kesem chapter? Like, how can we get them on board? Like, let's come up with a strategy. Like, I'm ready. Like, this needs to go. Everyone needs to know.
Yeah, well, 2 of them are Hawaii and Alaska. That's what we keep saying. We're like, those have got to be the next ones. Yeah, not from lack of interest, just making sure we are stable coming out of this pandemic, and making sure we have all the college students, up and running again, trained, comfortable. But we're really excited to keep opening those chapters, and hopefully we'll be in all 50 states really soon.
Oh, I knew it. I have
no
no
interest,
doubt.
reach out. We'd love to chat.
With you at the helm and knowing you and knowing how incredible you are, like I no doubt it'll definitely happen. And I really love what you said for the employers out there. And I know that there's people who listen who are in the HR space about looking for Kesem on a resume, because it's not a super well-known name yet. I know it will be, but what a great thing for someone to be able to talk about in an interview and get to show those leadership skills and accountability, because accountability is huge. I think accountability is one of like the least applied skill sets for most people. Like, I would not have a job if everyone did what they said they were going to do.
Yeah, I agree. We have 4 core values. They're continuous learning, accountability, resilience, and empathy. If you put them together, it spells care, because we love a good acronym here. But yeah, I mean, the accountability, as we were redoing our values, Catryn, we're like, that has to be core because of the number of volunteers. We lean on volunteers and we need them to be accountable for this work. And yes, again, if you see it on a resume, please hire them. I actually had heard a little while ago, we had some folks going pre-med and they were on the wait list for getting into med school. And the criteria of what got them off the wait list was the fact they were Kesem volunteers and it was on their resume, and now they're in med school. So people in the medical space in particular know us and know the value, and the wonderful volunteers that are part of our community.
Oh my goodness. I love it. I'm like how can I get involved more? I want to be more involved in this. I was already invested from, just our connection, but this deeper level and the, preparation I did in order for this interview, it really cemented it. So I really encourage all the listeners out there to please go and do more research into Kesem and their mission and get involved, because it's a really great organization. And, you hear a lot about, I'm here in Texas, right? And you've lived here in Texas too. When a hurricane comes through or any sort of natural disaster like the, fires in Maui or what have you, of people not knowing what organizations to donate to because they don't know where their dollars are going. Can you talk a little bit about that before we wrap up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we're always grateful for people donating to important causes out there. There's over 2 million nonprofits, I believe, right now in the United States alone, and they're all doing great work. And it's such an incredible system, an incredible, I almost want to call it an industry. There's a lot of people in the United States working for nonprofits. And what's important to know is it's a competitive space, and funding is the hardest piece for all nonprofits, and particularly for Kesem right now, as there are always other competing priorities out there, and they're all important. We certainly understand that. For Kesem, though, what you get when you invest in us and give us your support are literally changing thousands of kids' lives every year. These kids also come back year over year. So this is not a one and done. So these kids can be with us for 15 years before they graduate high school, and then they continue to volunteer for us as a college student. So we've got kids who have literally been part of our community 10, 15 or more years, and it's really a lifetime support. So your dollar, when you give it to Kesem, truly makes a difference and is truly changing lives.
I'm overclimped, misty over here. I think we're going to have to end on that note.
I'm a professional making people cry, is my role. I'm gonna have to figure out that title.
I think we'll have a really cute acronym for it. Because I love the care. I love the care acronym as your core value. That's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Well, Alicia, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you would like to share?
Thank you for this really wonderful conversation and your interest in Kesem and for helping us raise awareness. Yes, for all your listeners, don't hesitate to go to our website, find us on social media. My contact information is on our website as well. We'd love to hear from you and see how you can support us. And if you have families who might need our services, please let them know as well.
Absolutely. And that's KESEM.org.
That's it.
And I'll have it all in the show notes, but I always, for the people who are driving while listening, I like to spell it out for them too.
Smart. Thank you.
Well, to the listeners, thank you so much for being here. If you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with your audience. If you are curious about something else that you want to know more about, a certain profession or industry or person, please reach out. I would love to have them on a guest for a future episode. Until next time, everyone, have a great day.